Antonio with the Nocturnal. Pleasure to meet both of you. First, I wanted to say congrats on the film. I loved it. I just finished watching it for a second time. Could you guys tell us a little bit more about how it all started, how it all came into fruition?
Chris, you want to take it?
Sure.
Oh, he's on.
Thank you so much, Antonio, for watching it twice. That really means a lot to us. Yeah, we have been working together since 2015 on different shorts and web series, and I think about 2.5, 3 years ago, the two of us and our lead producer on the film, Adam McCalca, kind of all sat down together, and we said, I think we're all ready to graduate to making a feature film. And I had written everything that we had done, and James had directed everything that we had done, and Adam was the producer, and I was one of the actors. And so they kind of said, go off and write a movie that you would want to see. And I kind of did that, and it was kind of crazy. But I just followed those impulses and wanted to take a really big swing. And I think once it was in James's hands, and we got the cast together and we got all these amazing other creatives together. James is such an athlete, and I think the words and everything are so important, and the story kind of really moves at a rapid pace.
Right.
But the elevation of the film comes from just how beautiful it is to look at, how sumptuous the production design and the framing of everything, and the costumes and the colors, and we really wanted. We acted the whole time like this may be the only movie we can make.
Okay.
And if we were going to do that, every scene, every line, every setup, every shot, we wanted to make it as great as it could be on, with absolutely no time, no budget. We wanted to make it feel as much of a total experience as we could. And we're just so proud. We can't believe that it's finally coming out, and we couldn't be happier, truly.
That's really great. I actually had my next question is actually for James. What was your goal as the director, and what were you trying to get across throughout the whole production process?
Got you. Yeah, great question. I was trying to show up every day. That was number one. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to look like I knew what I was doing. No, I mean, look, I've worked in the industry for a very long time. I graduated from first making music videos, longer pieces of content. I've done everything across the board, narrative, branded stuff. But obviously, like Chris as well, our first love was movies, And funny enough, I was thinking about this. We're going to opening night on Friday. And I remember one of my first movie going experiences was Beetlejuice. My dad took me to that movie, and I was probably 3. I don't know. I forgot. But it's interesting to think about that, because I think there was a lot of neon tinge stuff in that film. And, right. I don't know, time's a flat loop due to COVID in the last couple of years. So I've been thinking about that stuff and the circular nature of everything. But anyway, yeah, I have some good answers for you. Sorry, I'm digressing. One thing that I did kind of try to keep in my head as a rudder was, we had initially, I think our shoot schedule was 16 to maybe 17 days, our initial shoot schedule, which was super aggressive, crazy tight. It ended up being a huge asset for us, because we were able to cull together some assembly cuts and then show it to some trusted people, and then really understand what we needed for additional shoot days. So we didn't have, the normal kind of longer, more robust shoot schedule. But one thing I tried to keep in my head every day was, if I can get a magic moment, and it happened on day one. We started late, and there was a bar scene, and we ended up fogging the room, and then remember that the fire engines came, and we're like, holy shit, everything that you hear from an independent production happened, right? But later that afternoon, at the end of the day, during magic hour, we shot a scene with Chris and Greg in a pickup truck. Right. And Chris had a monologue, and I'm no spoilers, but I remember seeing it. I think it was on take 2 or something. This twinkle in Chris's eye, and it felt like, when you, as a director, the biggest gift you can get is you're behind the monitor and you feel like you're watching the movie. You don't need to edit anything. And I was like, that's a beautiful take. That's an amazing moment. And if I could get 17 moments, even if, the world ends and everything explodes and everything that can go wrong we'll have 17 moments, which is more than I think most movies can say, right? 17 magic moments. So that was the initial thing that I kept in my head. And then once I realized we had something really great and then we needed to make it perfect, like Chris was saying, I think then, the bar only got raised higher and higher. It's like, well, how do we get better than that, right? How can every take be the best take that I've ever seen? And so, I think it was a muscle that we started, had to flex, the more we worked on this thing and the more we beated it out, and the more we churned the butter on it, and spent time in the edit room to really craft this thing, the better and better it became, and to that point, that magic point where we're like, yeah, I couldn't imagine this movie being any different than how it turned out. And that was kind of the process.
Awesome. And you guys both worked very like closely on the film, right? Like how different was the final product from the original script?
It was pretty similar. I mean, in terms of the beats of the story were the same. I think what needed to change most was the first act, because I think most writers have a problem landing the plane, having a great setup, but then not knowing what to do with it and how to tie it up. We knew how we wanted to tie it up. I knew how I wanted the audience to feel when they walked out of the theater. And I think for our first film, I think that the additional shoot days were so important because we knew how much work we had to do on the front end to kind of set up these characters and make the audience care, even though they do things and say things that most people would never do or say. So that was what we worked on. Yeah.
Well, this is your first writing credit? Is your first product that you wrote?
Feature film.
Feature
credit.
film?
Yeah.
What were the main differences between writing and acting? Were there anything that you had to overcome that was maybe difficult?
Everything.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely everything. I think the biggest thing for me was size. The web series that we did, was a lot bigger framed, and it was a lot more physical comedy, and so the frame needed to be bigger to capture a lot more action. And I remember one of the few initial setups, the camera was right here. So I was like, oh, I can't move at all. And I'm not playing to the back of the house because I'm not on stage. And all my acting class and improv experience were from being on a stage in a black box theater or whatever.
Right.
And that modulating those things was really important. But frankly, that also happened in the script, those intimate moments between two characters, and trading drafts with James along the way. We were very conscious of the fact that this was a movie. And so I think a lot of that work came before as well.
Awesome. And this can kind of go for both of you. I know you guys said that you both really like watching movies. What were some movies, maybe some of your favorite ones that helped inspire this one?
I think we'll have different answers, which is a good thing for this because, we both wanted to draw from a lot of movie history, and I think that the decade, I'll let Chris answer for himself, but I think a lot of the stuff that influenced the script writing and the tone for him was a lot of 90s films. But I looked to a lot of 80s films to kind of complement that aesthetic and style. And I think you'll probably see that a lot with obviously wardrobe, but really production design. Our production designer, Maddie, did such a phenomenal job with this thing. But a lot of the 80s films from the Reagan era, like even Wall Street, obviously, but there's one that I thought was really great from a balancing of tone perspective. It's called Something Wild. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it's a Jonathan Demme movie. And it's Jeff Daniels and Melanie Griffith and Ray Liotta. And it's phenomenal because it bounces back and forth between this kind of light, bouncy kind of comedy And Jonathan Demme does that really well. I think he balances genres, you know, in a lot of his films really, really well. But there's also a intense brutality and kind of really violent undercurrent to that film that boils up in the end, and you know, really moves and kind of morphs in a way that I think our movie does. So that was a really big influence for me, that film in particular. I remember really liking it when I was a kid, and I went back to watch it while we were developing the estate, because I knew that from the beginning, you know, from Chris and myself and Adam's initial conversations, it was really important to balance tone. And that was something that we, you know, kind of had to keep whittling throughout the complete entirety of the process, you know, all the way to the edit, to the music, to the sound design. I mean, to the title cards, right? The last thing we put in the thing. So like, you know, that was something that was really important for me to kind of wrap my head around and make sure that I was, you know, really trying to balance that stuff. And obviously when we started this thing, you know, the world was in a bit of a different place. You know, we were talking about the cyclical nature of things even earlier in this conversation. I was mentioning it. But, you know, what does that feel like? That kind of late stage capitalism, fall of Rome kind of vibe, which Chris already had. It was in the opening scene of the first draft of the script. You know, the house is beautiful, but decaying. Right. And in the title card of the film, you get the gold leaf, the leaflets are flaking off of the characters of the opening title. So, you know, that was something that I tried to keep in my head the entire time. And I look to a lot of 80s movies, but I'll let Chris pepper in, you know, some more. So it's a whole big bouillabaisse.
Yeah, the bouillabaisse for me that I added with the script, and also just in terms of how I saw the three main characters acting, it's these trios. And when I think of these, the famous trios for me throughout like film history and the big studio movie era, it's Cruel Intentions, you know, with Sarah Michelle Gellar and Ryan Phillippe and Reese Witherspoon. It's Wild Things with Denise Richards and Neve Campbell and Matt Dillon. And it's La Piscine from the 60s in France with Alain Delon and Romy Schneider and I forget the other guy's name, or The Talented Mr. Ripley with Matt Damon and Gwyneth and Jude. I thought that because we would be on such a small budget, to have three characters who gave so different viewpoints, but also so much for everyone to work with and different alliances within the trio. It's never a good idea when the setup, or it's not going to end well when the setup is three people. So I think it tells the audience a lot, you know, from the beginning. And those movies were really important for me making it and executing this.
Awesome. I have time for just one last question. Do you have any advice or any tips for any like aspiring filmmakers or writers that you guys are able to leave us with?
It's a great question. I think you know, we talked earlier about what was working for me and what I was trying to keep in my head, you know, for that initial shoot date, that initial shoot schedule. But I think the best thing to say is find out what works for yourself. But that's kind of like a vague, you know, that's a vague non-answer. So I feel like anybody watching this would be like, come on, man, give me a nugget. Right. So I guess a practical thing would be to know that there's only so many hours in a day. You know, I think I've seen, even when I was a student a film major, seeing other people doing their thesis. You know, I saw one guy try to chuck an apple onto a barrel. He was doing a period piece about his, you know, his ancestors coming through Ellis Island, and he couldn't figure it out. Like, he was having people chuck this apple onto a barrel, and he lost his whole day. And it's like, well, figure it out, man. Put some fishing wire on that thing, like reverse it, you know, in post. But, you know, he lost the whole day. And I think you kind of can lose sight of that when you're like, I need to make sure that this is perfect. And it's like, okay, if this is 90%, but I'm going to lose half my setups in the back end, you got to move forward, you know? And that's I think a really hard lesson to learn. And if that could be a practical, good piece of advice for anybody who's delving into this crazy thing, then, you know, they should try to keep that in mind too. Because, you know, you just got to figure out what's going to make the best project in the time that you have.
Awesome. Do you have anything to add, Chris?
I would say to piggyback off of that, don't think that things have to go such a specific way. I think that I fell into this so often during the early parts of my career. I thought I had to go along this certain path towards that would lead me to making my first movie, and none of that happened. And how I thought, the release of this, and I mean, COVID especially, I think you have to be able to roll with the punches and roll with things as they go, while also, like James said, keeping your eye on the prize of what you want to accomplish.
Awesome. Well, thank you both again. I really appreciate it. Great job on the movie one more time, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Antonio.
Antonio.
Great talking to you.